When they insist you be upset about an insurrection, show them this video and how they committed one against our entire country in the way that they physically and financially put us in harm's way for seeking and protecting illegal aliens. There is a new bombshell report by the Senate Oversight Committee that exposes the Biden administration, who forced at least 11 airports, and these are major airports, to house illegal aliens and migrants, despite warnings that it would put American travelers like you and me at risk. I have the full breakdown for you. Let's get into it right now. So the U.S. Senate Commerce Committee produced a 47-page report titled Flight Risk. They published it exclusively to some network media outlets like Fox News, but I have done my due diligence and research. It hasn't been made public yet, but you get a first exclusive look right here of what it details, what's entailed, what are the implications, and what are the potential outcomes. I'm going to break it all down for you step by step. And if you want a copy, as I always do in full transparency, if you want a copy of my research notes, I give them away for free. Stick around to the end. I'll tell you exactly how you can get them. Before I do, I just want to show you a couple of images. You can see those little kids at the bottom of your screen. These were reports. I did a video on this multiple times, 2023, 2024. This has been happening forever, and it was all conducted against expert advisory from aviation experts, airport security experts, and law enforcement officials alike. But they did it anyway. These poor kids, you can see these airports. And by the way, let me know in the comments down below if you ever visited some of these, like O'Hare in Chicago, JFK, Boston Logan International. If you've been, let me know in the comments if you've been to any airports in the last several years and you noticed and observed things like this, where you see them all, like it's like literally Skid Row in Los Angeles. You see them all laid out in beds and cots. This is such an unbelievable, egregious act of treason. Here you can see little kids behind these kind of black curtains right here. It's just awful, abysmal. And let's get into the report right now and break it down. So this is, again, a 47-page report from the U.S. Senate Commerce Committee that alleges, I'm going to use specific legalese and nomenclature just so because none of this is confirmed and completely solidified through the legal pathways and channels. However, you and I both know it is an absolute capital F fact. I will stake my entire reputation on it. The Biden White House quietly turned parts of America's airports into migrant shelters and processing centers over the objection of their very own, by the way, experts at the expense of aviation security. We're talking about major airports here, ladies and gentlemen. You need to share this. Tap that thumbs up. Share this with everybody you know. This is huge. You're not going to see this on CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, all the woke network apparatus. We're talking about Boston Logan, Chicago O'Hare, JFK, and at least 8 more airports across the country. And according to this report, this wasn't some local improvisation. It was driven directly by Biden and Kamala, probably because Biden was completely out of it. I call him the vegetable in chief, probably at the behest of Obama, Soros, and the deep anti-American Democrat cult that really pulled all the levers here. So what the flight risk report alleges is that senior White House officials directed federal transportation agencies, the Department of Transportation, FAA, MCSA, FTA, to identify airport facilities that could be used to house or process newly arrived migrants. I wonder why. Well, I'll tell you that in just a second. Internal emails show an FAA official telling Boston's Massport that this came as a, quote, request from the White House, end quote, and calling it, quote, an immediate ask, end quote, that needed to be prioritized. Doesn't that sound familiar, ladies and gentlemen? Prioritizing illegals, criminals, gangsters, terrorists over American citizens? Do I even need to go into Patty Marin, the poor mother who lost her daughter to a criminal migrant, Jocelyn Nungare? The list goes on and on. Another Department of Transportation staffer sees what's happening and says, quote, yikes. This is definitely Fox News fodder in the making. They knew. people there allowing this to happen, facilitating this. And you know what? I don't really blame the staffers. You know, they're just doing their job. They got kids to feed, they got rent to pay, they got bills. It's these insidious ghouls who call themselves patriots. It's these treasonous mutineers who call themselves representatives. Those are the people, the hypocrites, essentially. So what did this actually look like on the ground? At Boston Logan, the report and coverage say up to 352 migrants were housed overnight in Terminal E. The airport spent roughly almost $1 million, folks, on added security, cleaning, and transportation tied to this operation. Gee, I wonder if any of that money could have gone into actually updating aviation technology to make Americans feel safe. How many reports that Sean Duffy, the new Department of Transportation Secretary, has concluded that the Biden administration did nothing to update all of the equipment that has led to some of the biggest safety hazards and close misses and close calls in aviation history. But no, they'll spend it on migrants and illegals. At Chicago O'Hare, a shuttle terminal. So the exact figure is 779,000, but that's almost $1 million. And I only have that specific dollar amount. Again, this flight risk 47-page document by the Senate report has not been made public yet. This is just our initial findings, and based on due diligence and research, this is what we have ascertained, and it has all been confirmed through multiple sources and research. At Chicago O'Hare, a shuttle terminal was turned into what amounts to a large indoor camp with up to 900 migrants staying there. One of the biggest airports, not only in America, in the world. Between April 2023 and February 2024, those dates are so important because they are prologue to one of the most consequential elections of my lifetime, that's for sure, but of this country, 100%. Chicago police logged 329 service calls and 26 arrests at the site, including a death investigation. These aren't rumors, folks. Those numbers are being pulled straight out of the Senate report. The report's bottom line, the administration repurposed aviation infrastructure for migrant housing and did so despite clear security warnings from the people who actually run these airports. Gee, I wonder why. The JFK box cutter incident. I don't even know if most of you guys even understand what happened here. But if you think this is just about the people sleeping in cots, you've got a whole other thing coming. Because in February 2024 at JFK Airport, an illegal alien from Ecuador who'd been housed at a facility building called Building 197 broke into a secure area of the airport, ran toward 2 runways, and when airport police caught him, they found a box cutter and a pair of scissors on him. My friends, the Biden administration, Kamala, who was deemed the border czar, who did absolutely nothing for 4 years, who wrote a book about doing nothing for 4 years, and is on a book tour talking about how she did nothing for 4 years. These are such foul, treasonous acts. They put the safety of our kids, our families, hardworking, tax-paying, law-abiding Americans at risk in the worst fashion imaginable, literally exposing us to danger on a day-to-day basis. If you traveled anywhere in the last 4 or 5 years, this is what we had to face. According to that release, the weapons charge in this case was later dropped, and the defendant was given a deal that could lead to dismissal of the case if he stays out of trouble for a set period. And I have all my resources right there at the U.S. Senate Committee on Commerce. Now, put those pieces together. A person housed at the airport under these policies penetrates a secure area, has a box cutter on him at the time of the arrest. For an aviation system that was built after 9/11 around the idea of layered security, this is insanity. This is a real breach. Now, how far did this go inside the federal system? The flight risk report doesn't just stop at airports. According to media summaries, FMCSA was pulled in to help with, quote, know your rights, end quote, materials for migrant bus passengers. Why would they be so concerned? Why would they pull important federal aviation personnel, staff, security to educate these migrants on knowing their rights. You see where I'm getting at here, America? Do you see how absolutely destitute, how unbelievably criminal this Biden crime syndicate, Kamala, Obama, the Democrats in general. Now you know why they're fighting tooth and nail against ICE and law enforcement officials? We're getting rid of their voters, folks. I thank God every single day. Let me know if I get on my knees. Well, I pray every day, but I thank God every single day, my fellow Americans, that Kamala lost, that America made the right choice on November 5th, 2024, because this would be 100 times worse had she cheated hard enough. FTA encouraged transit systems to consider using federal transit grants to move migrants. Our money, ladies and gentlemen. And crucially, federal air marshals were reportedly temporarily reassigned to support border operations, taking manpower away from their normal aviation security mission. Now imagine bin Laden-esque, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, terrorist the Muslim Brotherhood, which Trump just officially designated as a terrorist organization. Imagine if these people were privy. Imagine if these people knew what was going on, which they probably did, and who knows how many terrorist cells. Minnesota is a perfect example, have been injected into our system. This is crime that rivals the Nuremberg trials. These are crimes against humanity. And Biden, Kamala, they need to see some accountability. Senator Ted, I know you agree with this. Let me know in the comments. They all watch this show, by the way. Their staff, their people, their personnel, all these congressmen, Levitt, Stephen Miller, let them know. Hegseth, let them know what you think in the comments. Senator Ted Cruz and his colleagues framed this as a co-opting of transportation agencies, essentially saying the Biden administration turned them into extensions of its immigration strategy at the expense of the core job of securing air travel. Cruz is quoted as saying, to transport illegal aliens through airports without identity checks, even those with felonies, end quote, show how far this policy went. So the factual point is not in dispute. Major U.S. airports were used to house migrants in significant numbers. Whether they make this report public or not, this is a hard ironclad fact. And internal emails show the push started with the White House. Color me shocked. This is making my blood boil. Why does this matter for aviation security? Airports are high density, high value targets, housing hundreds of people in terminals and shuttle centers, generating hundreds of police calls and dozens of arrests. You have documented breaches like the JFK box cutter. This is an unbelievable breach. You're not just improvising housing, you're changing the risk profile of the entire aviation system. On top of that, air marshals are being reassigned away from flights. This is why Senate Commerce Republicans are using language like, quote, warped repurposing of America's aviation system and, quote, direct consequence of open border policies. Even if you don't share the politics, why? This is the question. Why were our most sensitive transportation hubs used this way against the advice of the people whose job it is to keep them secure? Okay, so before I get to the potential outcomes, I'll tell you exactly why. My fellow Americans, it has become abundantly clear this is why they fly to El Salvador to protect illegal immigrants and criminals. This is why they fight ICE. This is why they fight Trump. This is why they obstruct. This is why they tell the military not to follow orders. They do everything that reeks of treason, mutiny, acts of sedition, which I've said many, many times, because they can't win elections anymore with actual American citizens. They implemented a mass invasion, accelerated their citizenship, insulted actual immigrants who came in the legal way through ports of entry, through the right systems and processes, like my parents who immigrated to this country in the early 70s, and my brother and I were born in the greatest country known to man, the US of A, all for the sole purpose so that they could retain power. They put your life, my life, our children's life in harm's way, and they didn't bat an eye. This is insanity. This is the biggest crime in U.S. history. Now, what are the potential outcomes of this? What should happen next? So we need a full public release of this. We have to get the entire report out. We need to require that all these agencies turn over all internal communications authorizing or even discussing migrant housing at airports. There needs to be a formal congressional investigation. Who at the White House gave the directive? What risk assessments were done, if any? Why airports like Logan, O'Hare, and JFK were used despite explicit security objections? We need to put airport executives, local police chiefs, air marshals, and whistleblowers under oath. The Inspector General and the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, they all need to be audited. What were their motives violating existing security protocols or grant conditions? Determine whether federal officials misused transportation funds by converting aviation infrastructure into long-term. Imagine what good that money could have done America. We need to assess the operational impact. If IG and GAO findings show that senior officials ignored documented security, we obviously need to remove or reassign or criminally persecute them. Because here's the big one right here: potential criminal or civil referrals. If evidence shows false statements to Congress, concealment of material, willful violations, we need to make criminal referrals to the DOJ, explore civil actions. I'm not going to promise these because I'll talk about that in a second. I'm just laying all this out. Legislative reforms to block this from ever happening again. We have control of the House. We have control of the Senate. The GOP needs balls. I talked about this before. Listen to Trump. He's the reason we're here. He's the reason why we're getting things done. He's the reason why the border is officially, literally closed. We've had 0 illegal crossings. What was it, 6-7 months in a row? Ban the use of federally funded public use airports. I mean, that should be a no-brainer. Require explicit congressional notification and approval before airports can be repurposed, and set minimum staffing and deployment standards for air marshals so they can't be quietly pulled off flights to cover unrelated missions. This is a no-brainer, folks. And finally, there needs to be transparency to the public. Demand that Boston, Chicago, New York publish their full numbers on how many migrants were housed. All incident reports, arrests, and EMS calls tied to those facilities, and a clear, substantive, full accounting of how much taxpayer money was spent, because these are the kind of things that not only will help get those criminal referrals and get these people out and get them behind bars where they belong, but you can also use this so the Democrats never get power again, because it is, if this video doesn't prove that the Democrats hate America, I don't know what does. I mean, despite all the other ridiculous, awful, criminal things they have committed, this right here proves in full daylight, with actual documentation, actual incidents, actual photographic evidence. We have physical, substantive evidence that the Democrats hate America. This is how you can turn this one explosive staff report into systemic reform and real accountability. These are just my suggestions. I can't wait to get your thoughts on this and your comments. Like I said, all of these people, these representatives, congressmen, women, senators, White House staff, they all watch this show. Let them know. Let them know as an American who cares. We can't just sit back and be angry and frustrated. Oh, well, those are the hypocrites. That's who they are. No, this channel is about honoring Theodore Roosevelt, honoring President Trump, the man in the arena. I want action. We need to enact our civic duty and our community obligation to do something. This whole channel's purpose, to make common sense go viral. You can help by tapping the thumbs up and sharing this with everyone. I've said it once. I've said it twice. I'll say it a million more times. They care more about retaining power than you, me, our country, the Constitution, law and order, safety, keeping our streets clean, our children. It needs to stop, and it needs to stop like yesterday. I told you that if you stuck around, I'll tell you exactly how you can get this full report for free. I'm going to leave a link in the pinned comment as well as in the description and show notes. It's free. You can have it for free. Click that link, download the PDF. It's all yours. You can check it all out at your leisure in full transparency. Help me make this video go viral. Make common sense go viral. Share it. Tap the thumbs up. Watch it all the way through. Share it with everybody that you know. Share it on your socials, wherever you need to go. And before you go, check out these videos coming up on the screen right here in case you missed them. Tap my face right here to subscribe and follow. It doesn't cost you a thing. It's free. And as always, may God bless you, and may God bless the USA and all who defend her. I'll see you soon.